Good morning, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. I am Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shag McNally, Chair of the Legislative Committee for the Colorado Forest Health Advisory Council. Sorry, everyone, I need another cup of coffee. We're glad to see you all today. Courtney, would you mind taking roll call?
Not at all. Good morning, everybody. Samantha Albert.
Morning, all.
Morning, Samantha. Christy Belton.
I'm here. Morning.
Good morning. Katie McGrath Novak. Looks like Katie's not here this morning. Pat Dorsey. Okay, Christina Bury.
Morning.
Good morning, Christina. Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally.
Good morning, present.
Good morning, Jody. Mark Morgan.
Present.
Morning, Mark. Julie Stencil.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy to see you. Vice Chairman Selwyn Whiteskunk is not with us today. Commissioner Veronica Medina is not yet with us. And then Allison Lurch.
I'm present. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Happy to see you all. We do have quorum, which is great.
Excellent. Oh, and Pat Dorsey's here. Welcome, Pat. So we'll add Pat to the list. Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you all for being here. We're not going to do the minutes this time. We are still just transcribing and getting those minutes prepared. I know all the staff have been extremely busy doing lots of great, amazing work. And so I'm sure we can get those both done for from last time and this time. And so I thank you all for that. We'll move on to the next item because an update on the legislative process and the wildfire committee outcomes. And James Lucero is going to do that, but I'm going to take a quick moment of personal privilege just to, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but James, I want to just congratulate you and your lovely soon-to-be bride for your wedding tomorrow. Thank you for being here today, which I think is quite the dedicated person. And we just wish you and your bride a beautiful, wonderful day and a happy marriage. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you all. Happy to be here. So like the Commissioner said, we went through, the Wildfire Committee was able to start the process of the bills that they wanted to draft. A little before I jump into the bills, I wanted to give you guys a little update on where we are in that process and kind of how we move forward. So the Wildfire Committee is allowed to ask for 10 bills to be drafted. And so on August 16th, they were in their committee and they actually approved 8 bills. What I anticipate happening, though, and I'll get into this, is that there will be 9 bills that are actually presented to the committee. So when they get those 9 bills on September 26th, they will have to vote to narrow it down to a total of 5 bills to get drafted. So they're going to go from either 8 or 9 bills down to 5. And that's going to happen on September 26th. And so jumping into the bills that are approved for drafting, I'm going to start with the ones that don't really apply to us, and then I'll save the ones that apply to the Forest Health Council for last. That way there's time for questions. So the first bill that's going to be drafted is it's basically looking at, I think they're trying to learn from what had happened in the past. If there's only one egress when there was an EVAC created for emergency, if there's only one egress and it's on private property, that landowner still has some liability that he has to overcome when they open that egress. This bill is looking to look into that, to get rid of that liability, to make sure that if this is the only egress, any kind of things that happen on that person's property when there is that mass exit because of the emergency evacuation, that property owner is not going to be held liable. Another one that is going to be approved is they're trying to make sure that mobile homes and the mobile home parks are as resilient as other places of residence. Representative Velasco has been really into the space for mobile home rights and accessibility, and this is one that she sees needs some improvement. She's like, she sees that there's not as many fire hydrants in and around mobile home parks, that there are some restrictions when it comes to home hardening in mobile home parks. And so this bill is just looking at really doing enough to make sure that they're as prepared and as resilient as other places of residence. Another bill I think is trying to learn from past mistakes is it's this idea of the strategy of last resort for emergency power shutoffs. So remember back in Boulder when Xcel just shut down all of the power without really notifying the community that they were going to do this. So in the event that they're going to do this, they're going to study what needs to happen before they actually do this, how they communicate to all of the community members before they do this, and really just looking at what they need to do to make sure that things don't go in the wrong direction should and if there needs to be an emergency shutoff for evacuations. And then the ones that are going to touch us kind of tangentially, I don't think this one will touch us that much, but our friends on the Division of Fire Protection and Control, Mike Morgan, they have this thing in their center called the Center of Excellence. And it's already this grand thing that is doing a lot of work to plan ahead for fires. In the last committee meeting, Lockheed Martin presented 5 different programs that deal with artificial intelligence that help really look to see, we think this is where the fires are going to start. This is how we stop them. And it's that forward thinking. And this bill is saying we want to find funding to move forward these 5 AI projects that Lockheed Martin is doing and to put them firmly within the Center of Excellence in the DFPC. And then the other bills that are likely very much so going to touch us are they're trying to create the idea of this one-stop catch-all website. Senator Cutter is the one that kind of that wants to do it. She's like, you type in the word coloradofire.com. That's a working title, but it'll give you all the information you need on mitigation beforehand, on home hardening beforehand, on resources if you're in the middle of a fire, on evacuate. Like literally, it's a one-stop shop website for everything emergency preparedness, wildfire mitigation, and stuff like that. And so that one will likely touch the Forest Health Council in the sense that this is what we're working on. How do we get all of those resources? Because it's going to be a statewide resource. How do we get all of the county level resources into this website? How do we maintain that one? And so that's another one that's probably going to touch us. And then the idea that the next one is, I'm not exactly sure how they're actually going to like get this into one thing, but it's this idea of the burner program. And then they even they expanded that more so to include firefighting activities. So this is that bill that I think is going to be split into 2 different bills. The good news for this council is that part 1 of that bill is our CSU extension and education program. So the program that Carrie Rollins has been talking to this group about, Representative Basenecker put forward that bill as is from the Legislative Council, the Legislative Committee recommendations. So that bill is moving forward. But then Senator Marchman wanted to add on an expansion of the workforce development work that this group had done in 2023 for Senate Bill 5. And when I say that it's an expansion, she wants to look into making sure that more people are going into the forestry space. And with this expansion of the burner program, she wants to make sure that there's firefighter retention and recruitment. So it's a big bill. And I anticipate that one being split into 2. I anticipate it being the CSU extension one, and then the expansion of the work that you guys had done on Senate Bill 5 from a couple years ago. And then the last bill that is probably going to touch us, it's really broad, it's really vague, but it's looking at what she said, what she wants to do is expand allowable uses and funding sources for hazard mitigation grant programs. Now, the way that it was described is this is not a new program. It's looking at what we are already doing. So think furworm, think CoSwap, think the Rural Grant Navigators bill that moved forward this last session. How do we make sure that there's more funding available for that, but also how do we expand what funding, what we can use that funding for? And so those are the bills that are moving forward. And like I said, at the end of the day, only 5 can actually be approved to go to the legislative session next year. That doesn't mean that if the bills that are drafted don't move forward, those individual legislators, they can move them forward. They just won't be what's considered a committee bill. Are there any questions on any of those bills or any questions on the process in general?
So James, thank you for all of that. I just wanted to kind of ask a question because I was asked to actually, on a side note, as a commissioner, I was asked to look at some of those drafting and things and questions, and I sent all of your names over, but we were asked as a collective group of fire commissioners that expanding with the fund
The burner
to do
program.
this other fund. I think that's through the enterprise fund that they want to charge a insurance fee on everyone. I don't know how much, but it's only looks like it's going to raise about $5 million, which is not a lot, but something. So is that your understanding as well?
I believe so. I think they're looking at, when they're expanding that burner program, they're putting the idea of this, when the committee was debating like how we do prescribed fire and control burns, they're like, the biggest issue that we run into is insurance and liability. And so how can we get more people, like think NGOs and fire districts, because it's a lot of money to do it. How do we get people to do that? And so what they're thinking about doing, you're correct, Commissioner, is this fire burning grant program where they pay into it and then everybody else gets to use that insurance. What the committee is concerned about, and what one of the committee members said was, I think this is the right path forward, but what we don't want to do is give bad actors the ability to buy into this program and then, have bigger problems along the road. But yes, I believe that's one of those things that they want to do with expanding the burner program.
And just a side note for that, about 15, 20 of us met with the insurance commissioner and some other folks, and we had met with Senator Cutter and them a couple of months ago in a smaller group, but there was a large discussion about insurance and fire insurance and home insurance and all these items, and it went way over. And so I have a feeling we're going to continue that discussion. And I know they've been talking with the insurance companies and just trying to figure out how we also get homeowners kind of a certificate if they do this home defense, so they can use it for their insurance to help bring down the rates, which I'm impacted by. So I appreciate all that. I have other questions, but I will be quiet because I know I can ask you off. And I've been actually talking with Representative Basenecker. He's, I've known him a long time, and I really, if we have a very gifted and very good legislator on that one, so who's interested in that. So I just want to say that he's very, very good. So anyone else have questions? Raise your hand. That's a really good, thorough explanation of that whole. There's a lot of activity they went through. So. Anyone have other questions or? Okay. Oops, Courtney.
James, my question is mostly for the notes. I'm wondering the one that's sort of workforce development, the CSU Extension Education Program, and then the expansion of Senate Bill 5. Were you calling that two? Or is that two recommendations, or for right now it's one, but it might be split?
So it's really interesting. That's a really good question. When the committee approved it, it was one recommendation, but I'm looking, and this isn't exactly public, but I'm seeing 2 different bill drafts, so it may have already been split off, but the way that it was approved was just one recommendation.
That's helpful. Thanks.
That's my understanding as well. So. And they will be busy. I think they were trying to get their bill drafts going because they're going into special session on Monday.
Yep.
And that's what happened last year, and that delayed bill writing for all these other bills going into the session. And I can say that individually. So I'm glad of the proactive and accelerated kind of response from those legislators who realized they probably needed to get things moving. So anyway. Any other questions? So good news, I think, in there. So Okay.
If
Well-
there's no other questions, I did want to touch briefly because I remember this committee said we want to know maybe other ancillary tangential bills that aren't super forestry related. And so there's only one bill that DNR has kind of flagged that could potentially touch this committee. And I don't know a lot about it, but the Water Resources and Agricultural Review Committee is looking into what's called revegetation legislation. And so it's not public yet, but to the best of my ability, to the best of what I know, it's dealing with current water court rulings and approving changes for agriculture and irrigation purposes. So once and if that looks like it's going to start to touch forests and forest management, especially with the revegetation stuff, I'll make sure to be more thorough in looking into that bill and giving you guys updates on that one. But apart from the ones that I talked about and this ancillary one, I think those are the ones that are going to cover the legislative session this year, at least as far as committee bills.
Excellent. Thank you, James.
Thank
Any
you,
other
everybody.
questions? Get out of here. Go get married. Congratulations.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. All right. So we'll move on to our next topic, everyone. Thank you. And now we're going to just we talked about just hearing some items, and here's some presentations about what DNR is working on and potential kind of considerations for us to think about from what other, and I'm sorry that didn't quite translate on the agenda. So I'm going to turn this over, I'm assuming, to Allison or Courtney, correct? Is Allison?
It's going to be both of us,
Oh,
actually.
cool.
Yeah.
So thank you both for pulling all this together, and I'm looking forward to, I know you guys are doing a lot of things. I'm looking forward to kind of getting a good kind of overcap of all the work you're doing, great work you're doing. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for having us. Go ahead, Courtney.
I was going to actually ask if you could share them because I'll be taking notes also.
Yeah.
The slides.
Okay, let me share the slides. Let me get into presentation mode. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for inviting Courtney and I to present on some of the programs and projects happening at the Colorado Department of Natural Resources. I believe we all know each other, but just to be formal, I'm the Forestry and Wildfire Mitigation Policy Advisor for the Executive Director's Office, and I'll hand it over to Courtney.
Hi, all. Yeah, my other hat, because you all mostly know me from the Forest Health Council, but I'm also the Forest Health and Wildfire Mitigation Program Administrator for the Colorado Department of Natural Resources.
So together for hopefully the next no more than about 15 minutes, we're going to go through some of the programs that we believe really intersect and share value with what you all are doing at the Colorado Forest Health Council. To start us off, just a brief touch on the department's mission. The mission at DNR is to develop, preserve, and enhance Colorado's natural resources for the benefit and enjoyment of people today and tomorrow. The Department of Natural Resources has many divisions, 9, I believe, including Avalanche, Water Resources, the Colorado Water Conservation Board, State Land Board, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and others. And really, wildfire or the impacts, negative impacts from wildfire can really touch on almost all natural resources that we manage under DNR. This is a really important, wildfire mitigation and forest health are both really, really important values to our director, Dan Gibbs. And if you have heard one of my presentations to the interim committees, Director Dan Gibbs, as you know, as the chair of this committee, is a wildland firefighter, and previously the Summit County's wildfire mitigation coordinator, and all of the work that you are doing and supporting with this committee and in your other positions, are so near and dear to his heart. So we really appreciate everything that you are doing and the time that you spend with us here. But really all this dives down to the work that we do for forest health and wildfire mitigation is not just singly ours at the DNR. As you all know, an interagency collaboration is absolutely imperative. The Colorado State Forest Service, so happy to have Director McCombs and Deputy Director Christina Beery here, and then of course James. The Colorado State Forest Service staffs DNR's Division of Forestry and is the lead agency on providing forest stewardship and fuels reduction to private landowners and to our state partners at CPW and State Land Board as well. And so we work very closely together and are continuing to strengthen our relationship internally as well. And it's really wonderful to have staff of Colorado State Forest Service all over the state providing these services. And in addition, as James was mentioning in his update, interagency collaboration goes beyond just our two, the State Forest Service and DNR, and adds in the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. And back in 2021 with Senate Bill 21258, our three divisions and departments signed an MOU to work collaboratively through the framework of the National Cohesive Wildfire Strategy, and also at the time help build the Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program that we'll talk about today. And so that interagency collaboration is just so important for us to really think beyond just what our single agencies can do and really give us that bigger picture of how we can better serve the Colorado's landscapes, watersheds, and people. Just this last year, so at the end of 2023, the Department of Natural Resources Executive Director's Office, this is before I entered into my position as well, but the assistant directors and deputy directors met and developed some strategic priorities for our department. And so we developed 5 strategic priorities that we're in the process of really digging into and working on and figuring out how to fulfill these over the next couple years. Our 5 strategic priorities, 3 are listed here and 2 on the next page, but biodiversity. Courtney and I were thinking about these and how 3 of our 5 strategic priorities really do have a crossover with what we do here at the Colorado Forest Health Council. So biodiversity was the first one. So just a little bit about that. Our mission with that is to implement biodiversity conservation practices to help manage and conserve Colorado's land, habitats, and species. So energy transition is another one of our strategic priorities, but we feel that there's not as much crosswalk on that. So we'll move on to tribal engagement. We're really excited about this strategic priority. Courtney and I and the COSWAP program, as well as our partners at Colorado State Forest Service, are just in some incredible conversations with the Ute Mountain Ute and Southern Ute tribes at the moment. And so I'm not going to read that whole blurb underneath, but tribal engagement and is a big priority for us at DNR. We're developing a tribal relations program, and really looking at this approach for this program is through that one DNR lens, where we look across EDO and all divisions as one. So really looking forward to moving into that space more. 2 other strategic priorities that we feel have some crosswalk: balancing conservation and recreation. And then number 5, climate resiliency, aligning our actions with statewide energy and climate goals. But this includes us all looking at a lot of the other existing plans and processes that are going on right now. As we know, there are so many either in place or in in progress. So we've got the state's strategic plan for natural and working lands. We've got our Colorado Water Plan, and then we also have a climate preparedness roadmap. Just a little bit on shared stewardship. I can't see everyone. Is Matt still on? Oh, good. Yeah. So just thinking about shared stewardship, and I dove into the statute for the Colorado Forest Health Council before preparing for this, our minutes today with you all. And I just really feel that shared stewardship is the backbone of everything that we are doing together here, and everything you all are doing, and the way that we are not just working in the right place and the right location and doing that right work, that tangible work on the ground, but it's also that planning work. It's those conversations that we have at this table. Thanks, Matt. I know you're here for it, and I'm so grateful that we are all in this space together. But as we set our priorities together, and you all set your priorities, your legislative priorities, are things that are having our listening ears always in these meetings. I feel like this is a really effective and respectful space, and really think that shared stewardship is the backbone of everything. Just recently, our shared stewardship agreement that DNR and the U.S. Forest Service had started in 2019 was about to expire. And so Frank Bem and Director Dan Gibbs, before Frank retired, put forth a 10-year extension signed just earlier this year to continue that great work. We're also in conversations with the Bureau of Land Management on shared stewardship agreements as well. I'm going to turn it over to Courtney now, who's going to talk about some other programs happening at DNR.
Good morning again. Yeah, I want to share about some of the programs, more of like the work happening on the ground within the Department of Natural Resources that relate to forest health. And these are things you all have heard about in the past, but we just want to make sure you have the most up-to-date information. The first one we want to go over is the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program, which is within the Colorado Water Conservation Board. You might also really closely associate this with Chris Sturm. His name, I feel like Chris and his team really created a wonderful program, and I know Chris has traveled the state sharing about this program. So I think it's been around for a few years now. And so when you've probably first heard about Wildfire Ready Watersheds, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, it was being launched. And now there are 13 Wildfire Ready Watershed action plans in progress. So the plans themselves walk communities and municipalities and water districts through the process, and utilities through the process of creating a wildfire ready watershed action plan. So they're identifying their values, they're identifying their risks, they're prioritizing on the landscape what projects are most important to complete. So this program is really about the action plan is about walking people through the process of preparing for wildfire with a watershed perspective. There are 9 pre-fire mitigation projects in progress and 2 studies to support wildfire ready watershed action plans. I'll just have to start saying RAPs in progress. Yeah, and on this map, you can see that they're pretty spread out across the state, which is wonderful. And Chris is really working to have infiltration statewide. Okay, you can go on to the next one now, Allie, thank you. Yeah, here's another map of, I think what we're seeing, yeah, the values at risk and hazards. So when people are developing their wildfire ready action plans, or when Chris is helping to sort of pinpoint communities that might need this support, they're looking at these areas that have a more red on the map, which indicates higher risk and values at risk that could use some additional support and planning. And one thing that COSWAP is really excited about is supporting projects within these areas. So that's something I can talk about a little bit later when we get to the COSWAP slide, is about how COSWAP and Wildfire Ready Watersheds are now sort of dovetailing and trying to do work together to support watersheds and wildfire risk reduction. Okay, so hopping in to, and if anyone has any questions about the Wildfire Ready Watersheds, you know, Allison and I can do our best to answer them, or we can get you information from Chris also. Moving on to the Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program, or COSWAP. You know, this is the program that Allison and I manage and administer. It was developed through Senate Bill 21-258 and really came to life in 2022. That's when the first grants were really put on the ground, and there are two big programs. One is the Workforce Development Program, and we're really happy about this one because it definitely seems to align with the values of the council, since workforce development is so clearly one of the statutory duties of the council. So COSWAP contracts directly with the Department of Corrections SWIFT crews and with the Colorado Youth Corps Association to put these workforce development partners on the ground to complete wildfire mitigation projects in areas of high risk. And these projects have that dual mission of both risk reduction and workforce development. And so these workforce development partners and the participants in those programs really have the opportunity to be in a learning environment. Their main focus is not efficiency. Their main focus is education. So we're both getting work done, and we're providing this learning environment for people who are interested in entering the forestry or wildfire mitigation field. So it's a really great program with a dual mission. We also have these larger landscape resilience investment projects that really, these have more of an efficiency and a large landscape scale impact as the goal of that program. So those projects have, there's the applicant, but then the grantee or the applicant works with multiple partners on the ground to plan and implement projects that meet the priorities of the landscape. So moving forward, COSWAP is going to have a $6 million annual budget. $5 million of that comes from severance tax revenue, and the $1 million and the additional $1 million comes from the general fund. And this is, the $1 million is from Senate Bill 5. And so this is something that the Forest Health Council really helped to make happen when we passed that workforce development bill in 2020, in the 2023 legislative session. $1 million was advocated to the COSWAP Workforce Development Program, which is wonderful. We've also partnered with the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute to monitor the Landscape Resilient Investment Program to understand what kind of impact are these projects having on the landscape. And in our most recent partnership with CFRI, we're doing sort of a phase 2 monitoring. We are looking not only at the impact of the mitigation work on the ground, but we're also looking at the more of a social lens. We're looking at the collaborative stages of readiness and asking the question, what qualities of collaboration lead to the best projects on the ground? And so the information that we gain from this study will help inform the way COSWAP awards projects in the future, and hopefully will also help inform the way capacity and collaboration are funded, because we'll have a better understanding of what qualities and what practices are really leading to these best projects or the most impactful projects. At the last Forest Health Council meeting, you all heard from Stacy Coleman a little bit about some of the work that she's doing as DNR's new Assistant Director for Tribal Affairs. And COSWAP is really happy to be working closely with Stacy Coleman. And we are deepening relationships with the Ute Mountain Ute and the Southern Ute Indian tribes to better support their priorities. These are just some great big stats. Since 2022, we've supported 90 grants. We've contracted 16,000 acres, and we've invested over $30 million. Breaking it down a little bit between our programs, our workforce development grant, which has projects statewide, has invested over $10 million on the landscape. We've put 72 projects into contract, and we've awarded over 560 weeks of work that plan over 4,000 acres. And many of these projects are still in progress, which is why the numbers are, planned and contracted. But as the program continues to roll forward, we'll have some more hard stats of what did we accomplish in our first round and our second round. Within our landscape resilience investment program, we've invested now over $20 million. We have 3 rounds of that program rolling right now. The first round was released in 2022. We funded 10 projects. In 2023, we did a special release using federal funding through the ARPA investment. And this is the opportunity that ties in with wildfire ready watersheds, because that funding had a special earmark for watershed health. We partnered with Chris Sturm to identify 2 wildfire ready watershed action plans that were far enough along or had enough capacity within them to also plan a forest health project. So we're really excited about that partnership. And then just this year in 2024, we've awarded another 11 LRI opportunities or investments in Colorado to do more landscape scale work.
So we just wanted to wrap it up. And as I mentioned earlier, we looked back at the council priorities and statute and just wanted to call out a few, or 6 of the council's priorities as we saw had some direct relation or that DNR's programs have and could have a direct impact to. Courtney, do you want to start us off?
Yes, I would be happy to. So the first statutory duty that we pulled out is making recommendations for forest health and wildfire mitigation capacity building and funding. And this is, really policy development, and that's something that happens in the Department of Natural Resources. Allison and Dan, they really have a lot of subject matter expertise and policy expertise to help guide policy within the Department of Natural Resources, but also at the state. And so this is something that the Forest Health Council is doing, but also the Department of Natural Resources is doing to support forest health statewide.
Thanks, Courtney. The next one we pulled out was landscape scale planning to identify state level priorities for forest restoration, wildfire risk reduction, and related management. When I was reading this one, the first thing that came to my mind was shared stewardship, and just bringing that back to my slide earlier. But just thinking about also a chance for us all to really sit with some of the great accomplishments and projects that are going on right now. We've got the 30-year vision kicked off with the July meeting. Really, really excited for that. And then also the Forest Resilience Guide, right? Really looking at looking at the issues in place. And I know that's probably part of another one too, but just at the state lens and doing that state level priority setting. But really coming back to shared stewardship, we have an opportunity to really think about priorities at a state level. And I know I have not, I'll be here more, is I guess what I want to say is that this is my space now too. And I know it's been hard for me to fit into this space as well with my new schedule, but I really look forward to diving more into this council priority with you all, as we have so many incredible subject matter experts to be able to help shape these state level priorities. So yeah, just there's a lot of hope, excitement, and joy in this one for me.
All right, the next statutory duty we thought related to the work of DNR is monitoring trends related to forest ecosystem health, including those related to climate adaptation, and advising on opportunities for state level action. And I know a lot of this is done within the State Forest Service. They really lead on science and forest ecosystem health, and we're really happy to learn from them and kind of, you know, be a sister same organization in this. But some things that also come out of DNR is like the Colorado Water Plan. Things that we've worked on are the Strategic Plan for Climate Smart and Outbound Working Lands and the Colorado Outdoor Strategy. So there are places also where we're sort of trying to pull on best practices and science to help inform these plans and roadmaps that help guide the work of the state in forest health and ecosystem health.
And next, monitoring and identifying opportunities to support and promote synergy across forest-based collaboratives in the state, including coordinating state funding sources and sharing best practices. I think there's so much in this, and really appreciate the conversations that we've all had and that you have had about supporting forest collaboratives, especially with the last legislative priorities that we put forth, and also or that you all put forth, especially with the lens of supporting furworm and furworm's capacity, you know, supporting that capacity side of the furworm grant. And but I also just I think that with COSWAP and wildfire ready watersheds, embedded in both of those programs is this vision and support for the collaboratives and the water providers across the state, and how we can best support them, whether it's in planning or in capacity support as well. And we know that not every year is going to be a big money year, right? And so we have the opportunity as this council to still think about this, even if the dollar amount is low, that we can still be there and keep that momentum going, knowing that we need to support the people across the state doing this work.
The next duty is quite similar to the last one, but with slightly different partners identified. So this is identification of strategies for building sustained capacity to conduct forest restoration and wildfire mitigation work at scale through collaboration across multiple agencies, organizations, and jurisdictions. And so similarly to the last bullet that Allison walked us through, COSWAP and wildfire ready watersheds and DNR and furworm, you know, all are really supporting collaboration and increased capacity across different levels of organization within the state. And, you know, at least with COSWAP, we're asking counties to identify their partners, like who are the utilities, who are the collaboratives, who are the nonprofits working in your area. And we invite them to collaborate to come up with these plans and projects that support shared values across an identified landscape. And so this is just something that, the department values and is trying to support across agencies and across scales of organizations doing this work. And this certainly also ties into shared stewardship in terms of collaborating across agencies and across scales.
And then our last one, which we've touched on a bunch on our presentation, so I'll keep it brief, but it's the identification of workforce development challenges and opportunities. We are just so grateful for the emphasis of this this council has, and to always keep that at the forefront. Right? We know that we have workforce challenges throughout the entire industry. And we also know that programs like COSWAP, although we have our workforce development grant, right? But we can't hit on every single workforce development need with just a single grant program, as much as I would love that we could do that. And so we have multiple efforts going on at the state. Some Courtney had mentioned, with Senate Bill 5 happening, as well as what we do at COSWAP, supporting Conservation Corps' workforce training and the Department of Corrections. But then I would just want to highlight, just by name, even just a new program as well, Christina and Matt, that just came out from the Colorado State Forest Service, the Timber and Forest Health Wildfire Mitigation Industries Workforce Development Program, right? Yet another opportunity out there to help support our workforce and our workforce needs. So I'm hoping to hear some more from that too, from you all at the Colorado State Forest Service eventually here. So just having us have that voice. And also you can, as this council, to push us at DNR and COSWAP as well, to see if we can and where we can expand workforce development opportunities through our grants. Courtney and I have been big listeners as well as implementers across the past 3 years, but we've loved listening. We have to get our program and our grant out there, which Courtney, we should plug to just at the end of this. But then also after each release of our workforce development grant, then comes the listening. We create a document. It's almost like the day of the release, where we're like, what did we hear? What do we need to change? And what needs to move forward differently for our next time? So we'll be listening into this council and over the next year as we continue to do more workforce development releases. That's our presentation for you all. Thank you so much for this opportunity and the space to share what's going on at the Department of Natural Resources. And if you have any questions or comments, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this excellent, excellent presentation. There's a lot of great information, and I think it's really a great opportunity for us to pause and think, what is happening? There is so much happening that we don't always get to know all the progress. And I think showing those numbers and the amount of area and showing the maps is just really helpful. And I really appreciate the last couple of slides with the nexus and the council priorities. It's really helpful in helping us make sure we're following kind of those statutory priorities. So first, just fantastic. Thank you so much. I know you guys worked really hard to pull this all together in less than a week. So I just want to also say thank you for that. It was very well done. Mr. Morgan, I see your hand is raised.
I just had a couple short questions. Earlier on in your presentation, you used the term energy transition. Could you define that for me? And then the other one was climate resiliency. I guess for your work that you're doing, I would like to get kind of a definition of what those mean to your department.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Morgan. What I would like to do is to share with you what we have for the energy transition. That is not one of our strategic priorities that I have been able to be a part of so much. So if you want, I could share a link to a document in our chat here so that you can see that thoroughly instead of me just trying quickly to summarize it with my limited knowledge. And I'm also happy to do that with the climate resiliency side as well, or just pull up my slide and dive deeper into that for you.
Okay, I was looking for a really short, I was trying to educate myself for about a 3-word definition of what this is so that I could follow along better on your presentation.
No problem. Well, I'll share for the energy one, I'll just share a couple blurbs in the chat regardless. But for climate resiliency, we're looking at I'd say the few words that we're really looking at, since we're looking at climate resiliency across all of Colorado's, natural resources and other priorities, conservation, recreation, wildlife, and all of that. We're looking at adaptation as a big part of all of this, and how do we adapt our management strategies? How do we adapt our forests, our natural resources for a changing future? So adaptation is a real big word for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so mindful of the time, we have about 7 minutes left. I'll be just making sure we don't go over. Any other questions? We have another week next week of presentations from this area, and just kind of help us ground us to what all that's been happening, what's going on, and kind of how our previous work is impacting all that. I think that was also really helpful to know, so that we can kind of think about what we've done and how it's already kind of helped maybe support and move the needle for this important work. So really appreciate this. And will we be able to send these slides to everyone, just in case they'd like to have us to go back and reference beyond the minutes? I think that would be really great.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions? Any other thoughts?
I just want to share a thought, Commissioner.
Sure, please do.
Yeah. So I'm just really excited about Wildfire Ready Watersheds, and just want to share my enthusiasm for that. And I know the Leveraging Resources Subcommittee has also talked about like how to leverage the basin roundtables. And that's something that I do see a lot of opportunity. It may not touch this group quite as much as like the Leveraging Resources Subcommittee, but the Basin Roundtables, I know they're coming together in October for a summit, and they're in Forest Health. I'll be speaking on Forest Health, and Chris Sturm will be speaking on Wildfire Ready Watersheds. And there's just a lot of interest that's gaining momentum with the Basin Roundtables and the water plan. So again, just, I wanted to express my enthusiasm for that, and also just highlight that that momentum and connection with the water plan and the Basin Roundtables. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. And it's something that the Leveraging Resources Subcommittee has been talking about as well. So just wanted this subcommittee to be aware of that and what's going on with the other committee for the Forest Health Council. So thank you.
That's a great point, because there's lots of other work happening with the Forest Health Council with that other committee, and they're doing some great work too. And I think there is some overlap, and that might be interesting. Christine, I know you'll be more, well, I'm also on that committee, and sometimes I always forget to kind of share what the other committee's doing. And so maybe I'll try to make a mental note to kind of just highlight that. So a little bit just to kind of make sure because we're both committees are doing fantastic work. So it might be great just to, since we only meet once a quarter, just to kind of have that touch about, hey, this is what the other committee is doing. And just, I think that might be a good point. Mr. Morgan.
One other comment. Oftentimes in discussions like this, I always hear the term leveraging resources, and basically more direct speak, that's trying to get somebody else to help pay for what we need to get done, or to find other opportunities. And I often find that at some point we have to have an economic driver for these activities. We have to have a primary source of funding. And I just wondered what thought is going into trying to develop that funding, or call it what you want. But you can leverage back and forth forever, but at some point we have to come up with the bucks to do the work. And how are we going to generate that, and how are we going to monitor that? And that's, I guess, my comment for the day is there any thought or any discussion on what might be economic drivers to achieve this work? I'm excited about Wildfire Ready Watersheds as well as you are, Christina. And it's like, how do we pay for it?
So, Mr. Morgan, just one of those ideas was something we mentioned earlier with that potential legislation with the enterprise fund that they're looking to charge everyone across the state. And so that's one piece of the legislation is like ongoing funding to be in a pot of money. It's not a lot of money, but it's more money probably than right now. So I'm not sure what that we can probably, I think that's would be a nexus to this committee that maybe it's not one of our recommendations, but maybe we could keep an eye on that language and talk about that because it is another source of funding. So I know there's a lot of ideas talking about that.
Did we lose
I think I lost me. Well, anyway, there's other kinds of been doing this. I hope you can hear me. So I'm having trouble with my internet again. So thank you. So Pat, your hand's raised. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick question, and Mr. Morgan made me think of this. Is in the past, there's always been some sort of a biomass bill or, biochar or something like that. I didn't hear anything like that in James's conversation, but it might be good to keep a lookout for that one.
I think there's that they're looking for some information, and I think Director McCombs, that would be great for you to share about that. Thank you.
Can't hear you.
We're not hearing your audio, Director McCombs.
How about now?
Yeah.
Victory?
Thank you.
All right. Google Meets always gets me. Yeah, and the biomass utilization piece, I mean, there continues to be interest on how we can continue to incentivize, right? Maintaining our traditional capacity and incentivizing it to adapt to the type of fiber that's coming off the landscape, while also taking hard looks at like, where can we grow emerging technologies that would benefit Colorado? So everything is so like, there's a lot of conceptual and there's a lot of like, we're almost there, and so, biochar is like, we have a few firms that are trying to scale up and trying to be available to take capacity. We got some biofuels that's like just very much on the cusp down in the valley, concepts that are coming to fruition. And then I think, we're still in active dialogue with utilities about, is biomass utilization for power generation a viable long-term alternative? The gypsum plant kind of losing traction is an opportunity to rethink sort of that concept. And so there's a lot of discussion between the Forest Service and between that company and other companies looking to maybe potentially buy that capacity. So, man, we're just like, so close in so many different places. We got the Mass Timber Coalition gaining speed and really starting to create an idea that Denver might be a great place to situate that type of technologies development and expansion. So I would say that we are hitting it at like every single modality that exists. We are exploring and trying to, and then, we're really successful in the state in pulling down the federal resources. We're the beneficiary of multiple woody biomass innovation grants from the U.S. Forest Service that still have some money still in the kitty. But, and then we're going to drop a biomass study here. Like, we're just working so hard we've got a contract that's just about to be let to have the review of that entire document to make sure it's ready for prime time. And we're hoping like as soon as this spring, things will drop, and then we'll have a characterization of the opportunity in a way that we never have before, that's rooted in the best data that there is in the forest inventory analysis data. So yeah, everything is on the cusp, and it makes me bananas. As you guys know, my approach to everything is impetuous. But we're working on it, and everybody's behind the effort. I want to come back to Mark's question though about like how do we do this?
Real quick though, we're over time, so
I'm sorry. I can shut up.
No, we can. I just need a motion to extend. How about we extend for 5 minutes so that we can not go over? So I need a motion.
So moved.
I'll move.
Second.
Anybody? All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. We're 5 minutes. Thank you.
I just want 2 minutes. So two things. One, that question about resources. So there's some exciting conversations going on with county commissioners, all that Commissioner Shattuck McNally is helping lead about how do we bring it from the bottom up, right? How do we leverage some of the working models that exist around debrucing efforts and taxing efforts that have gone on in counties that are bringing real resources, steady investments that are making a big difference. We saw Excel bring in a very thoughtful and bold proposal around wildfire mitigation that's put the billion number into people's heads that I think is an important transition in thinking that's going to go before the PUC and think about how do ratepayers participate. I think the RAs are looking at it. I think that others are looking at, how, water utilities, or how do we draw in the resources we need. And then there's big discussions starting sort of at the state and federal level, especially with the delegation, about how do you sort of like bottom up, sides out, philanthropy and others, individual landowners, and start to build out a resource base that is consistent with the intensity and the scale of the problem that we're facing. And those conversations are in earnest, and this group's going to be participatory in that, and we'll be bringing that as it refines itself, acknowledging we're in competition with everything else that the state is trying to move forward in healthcare and education and affordable housing and roads and bridges. And so, but the voices are coming into the room, and there's a lot of energy around coming up with a really interesting consolidated approach. And by the way, Mark Morgan has the number. He knows how much it costs. We had a great conversation the other day, and he helped me understand this is what I think it costs, man, and it's been very helpful. The other thing I wanted to just put in the room real quick is that I got to sit down with our new regional forester, Troy Highthecker at the U.S. Forest Service, and I was just deeply impressed with the energy and the intensity that this gentleman's going to bring to our work. And I just wanted to signal that we've got a new leader in the region and a new partner. And I left with as enthusiastic as I've been. And I encourage you that if in your role and in your space to reach out to U.S. Forest Service, try to make contact with Troy and help characterize for him how we need to move forward together, and that all of this has to be under the banner of shared stewardship, and that we have to bring and draw down all the resources that we can and focus on the highest priority areas and start making explicit moves, taking pieces off the table, big chunks of ground off the table, so we can start showing folks how we're having success. So just some highlights from where I'm sitting. We've got a lot of big meetings coming up, the wildfire conference, the SAF nationals coming here, the National Association of State Foresters meeting. So my September is about connecting with people and trying to move these things forward and bring it back to this group to think about how we legislate in this state and bring policy formulation forward in a way to start moving this action towards really some exciting moves for Colorado and getting in front of the challenges facing us as opposed to responding to it. I'll shut up. That was more than 3 minutes. I apologize.
Excellent. And really excited to hear that news. And I want to remind everyone that one of the topics that we're having is we had a $200,000 DOLA study for biomass, and also Boulder County is doing a similar with a different consultant. And we're going to bring, I think I got the fingers up that the consultants and those doing that boots on the ground, including biochar, are going to bring some, before it's released, we're going to get some first hands-on kind of information from those studies, from those independent consultants who've been traveling all over looking at all these things. So just wanted to share that. So we'll probably have that in a couple of weeks. And I do know that everyone's really like Matt said, we're right on the cusp and everyone wants to move, but we're trying to get some really solid data or information to know which way is the direction. So with that, fantastic discussion. Great. I appreciate everyone's time. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And I'll appreciate, again, Courtney and Allison, thank you so much for pulling such a fantastic presentation together. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe and thank you all. Take care.